Chapter 1. The Day I Died. The day I died came as quietly as a whisper. There was no warning, no signal, no great moment of clarity before everything changed. One moment I was living my life, walking along the familiar streets, feeling the sun on my skin, then in a flash the world had transformed. It wasn't the world as I had known it, but an eerie, twilight version of it, always dark, like the deepest night without a hint of daylight. Yet everything carried on. I floated, as if in a dream, unable to walk or move as I once had. There was no weight to my body. I drifted through the streets, unnoticed by the people around me. I watched cars drive by, saw people laughing, talking, living, completely unaware of my presence. I didn't even realize I had died at first. It all seemed like a strange, ethereal dream. I floated above the city, the lights flickering like stars beneath me. But something was off. I couldn't feel anything, and I couldn't speak. The people didn't see me, no matter how much I willed them to. I reached out, trying to touch the cars, the lampposts, even the faces of the strangers who passed by. Nothing. It was as if I was made of air, a shadow that had no place in the world anymore. At first, I wondered if it was all just a nightmare. Maybe I had fallen asleep and soon I would wake up. But the longer I stayed in that dreamlike state, the more I started to feel a sinking dread in my chest. Something was wrong, something I couldn't quite place. That's when I saw them. Figures of light, glowing softly against the darkness, hovering just out of reach. They were beautiful, their forms radiant, almost too bright to look at directly. There was something otherworldly about them, something that made my heart ache with longing. I was drawn to them, like a moth to the flame. I didn't know who they were at first. Angels, maybe? Messengers from some far-off place, here to deliver a message that I wasn't ready to hear. But their presence calmed me, even as I floated helplessly, trying to make sense of the world I was no longer part of. One of them approached, its light warm and gentle, like the soft glow of a candle in a darkened room. The others stood back, watching. The figure spoke in a voice that was both soft and powerful, echoing in the stillness. "Who are you looking for?" the angel asked. The question stunned me. My mind raced, trying to find an answer. Who was I looking for? What did they mean? For the first time I felt the weight of the question press against me, pushing me deeper into the reality that I wasn't dreaming. I was dead. This wasn't a dream. This was real. Without hesitation, the words tumbled from my mouth, almost as if they had been waiting there all along. God. I'm looking for God. The angel looked at me, and something passed between us, an understanding maybe, or a hesitation. Then it turned to the others, and I saw something I never expected. Confusion. They exchanged glances, as if the name I had spoken was foreign to them, foreign. God. How could that be? These were angels, weren't they? Divine messengers who knew the Creator of all things, weren't they? God, one of them asked, the word lingering in the air like they were testing it. We don't know who that is. I felt my heart drop, cold terror washing over me. I searched their faces for some sign that they were joking, that this was a mistake. But the glowing beings, with all their beauty and grace, stood there unmoved, staring at me with blank expressions. They didn't know God. How could they not know Him? Panic gripped me. My mind reeled, spinning in 1,000 directions as I tried to make sense of what was happening. I could feel my pulse racing, or at least I thought I could, even though I no longer had a body. This had to be a mistake. It had to be. No, I cried, my voice cracking with desperation. Jesus, save me. I waited, holding my breath, expecting, hoping that something would happen, that my cry would summon some divine intervention. But the angels just stood there, their expressions soft yet devoid of understanding. If you stay here, your soul will die, one of them said, their voices calm, almost soothing, but the words struck like a blade. Duh. What did they mean by that? I didn't understand, but fear swept over me, wrapping itself around me like a thick fog. I didn't want to die, not my soul, not everything that made me who I was. So despite my confusion and the terror gnawing at my insides, I made the only choice I felt I could. I went with them. Chapter 2. The Celestial Vessel. They guided me gently, their light surrounding me as I floated with them through the darkened streets. I wasn't sure where they were taking me, but I knew I didn't have any other options. What else could I do? I was lost, a soul adrift in the twilight of my own death. The world around us began to change. The familiar streets, the people, the cars all faded away, replaced by something far more magnificent. Above me, the stars stretched out like a glittering blanket, the vastness of the cosmos opening up before my eyes. We were no longer bound to the earth. We were moving through the stars. A ship. No, not a ship, something more. Something celestial appeared before us. It was vast and shimmering, not made of metal or wood, but of pure light. Its form ever shifting, like the surface of a calm sea. The angels led me toward it, and I felt a sense of a wash over me. This wasn't a mere vessel. This was something divine, something beyond anything I had ever known. As we boarded the UFO-like vessel, I could feel the hum of its energy vibrating through me. It was alive, in a way, connected to something far greater than just the stars and planets. The angels guided me inside, and for the first time since I had died, I felt a sense of calm, as though I was where I was meant to be. Inside, the vessel was expansive, its walls glowing with the same ethereal light as the angels themselves. There were no controls, no machines, just light and energy flowing through the space, guiding us through the universe. Chapter 3: A Journey Through the Stars. As the celestial vessel began its journey, I found myself mesmerized by the universe around us. Through the shimmering walls of light, I could see the stars stretch endlessly in every direction. It was as if I had stepped into infinity itself, with galaxies swirling in the distance and nebulae glowing like colorful clouds. Time didn't seem to exist here. There was no past, no future, just the present, an eternal now, where every moment felt like it could stretch forever. The angels, or whatever they were, moved gracefully around the ship, their glowing forms gliding effortlessly through the space. I still felt uneasy about them. How could they not know God? That question gnawed at me like an itch I couldn't scratch, but I was too afraid to ask again. I didn't want to hear their answer. Instead, I focused on the beauty surrounding me. The stars seemed close enough to touch, and the vastness of it all made me feel small, but not insignificant, more like a tiny part of something grand and eternal. I wondered if this was what heaven felt like, if this was what it meant to be beyond the physical world. And yet, despite the awe I felt, there was still a part of me that longed for something else, something I couldn't quite name. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. There was a gap inside me, a void that no amount of cosmic beauty could fill. It was then I realized I was looking for God. But where was he? The angels remained quiet, their faces serene but distant. I felt their love, their warmth, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the love I had known from my faith. It wasn't the love of my Creator. The more I thought about it, the more I felt that I didn't belong here. I tried to push those thoughts away, telling myself that this was part of the journey, that I was learning something, that there was a reason for all of this. Maybe I hadn't passed some test in my life, and this was the consequence. Maybe I had to find God again, in some deeper, more profound way. But the uncertainty gnawed at me, refusing to let go. Suddenly, I noticed we were approaching something. Far off in the distance, a planet appeared, glowing softly against the backdrop of space. It looked familiar, too familiar. As we drew closer, I realized why. It was Earth. Only it wasn't. Chapter 4: The Perfect World. The celestial vessel hovered above the surface of this new world, and I could see that it was a mirror image of Earth, but flawless in every way. The forests were lush and green, stretching out like oceans of emerald across the landscape. Rivers of crystal-clear water cut through valleys, glistening like diamonds under a sun that shone with a golden glow. There were cities, too, but not like the ones I had known. These were cities of light, where the buildings seemed to be made of pure energy, their forms fluid and ever-changing. The angels brought me down to the surface, and the moment my feet touched the ground, I felt a rush of peace wash over me. Everything here was perfect. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the scent of flowers and trees. Birds sang sweet melodies in the distance, their songs blending with the gentle hum of the wind. It was paradise. As I walked through this world, I saw other people, souls I supposed, wandering through the fields and gardens. They too seemed at peace, their faces serene and content. Some were sitting beneath trees meditating, while others walked along paths of light, their eyes fixed on the sky as if searching for something far beyond the stars. No one seemed in a hurry. There was no rush, no anxiety, no fear. Everything here was in perfect harmony. The angels guided me to a place at the edge of a vast meadow, where a group of souls had gathered in a circle. They were sitting on the grass, their eyes closed, as if in deep thought or prayer. The angels gestured for me to sit with them, and though I hesitated for a moment, I did as they asked. As soon as I sat down, I felt a strange sensation wash over me, like a wave of clarity. It was as if a veil had been lifted from my mind, and suddenly I could see my life laid out before me. Every choice, every action, every path I had taken. It was like watching a movie, but it was more than that. I could feel everything too. Every joy, every sorrow, every regret. It was overwhelming, and yet it was also liberating. The souls around me were doing the same thing, I realized. We were all here to study our lives, to see the paths we had taken and the ones we could have taken. It was not a judgment, it was simply a review, a reflection on the journey of the soul. And as I looked deeper into my own life, I began to see things I had never noticed before. Tiny moments that had shaped my destiny in ways I hadn't even realized. Chapter 5. The Choices Not Taken. I saw myself as a child, running through the streets of my hometown, laughing with friends, carefree and full of life. I saw myself growing older, making decisions that seemed small at the time, but had led me down specific paths, some good, some not so good. I saw the moments when I had doubted, when I had chosen fear over faith, when I had let pride or anger cloud my judgment. But I also saw the moments of grace, the times when I had been kind, when I had helped others without expecting anything in return. I saw the love I had given and received, the prayers I had whispered in the quiet of night. It was all there, even all my sins, every moment, every thought laid bare before me. And then I saw something else, the paths I hadn't taken. These were the roads not traveled, the choices I could have made but didn't. I saw the life I could have lived if I had been braver, or more trusting, or more patient. I saw myself as a different person, still me, but changed by different circumstances, different decisions. Some of these lives were filled with more joy, others with more hardship, but they were all possibilities, roads that could have been mine. As I watched these alternate versions of myself, I felt a deep sense of peace. It wasn't regret exactly, just a recognition that life is made of choices, and every choice leads to a different path. Some of those paths are better than others, but none of them are wasted. Every life, every journey is part of the same grand tapestry, woven together in ways we can't always understand. The angels watched over us as we studied our lives, their presence comforting and reassuring. There was no rush, no pressure to move on. We were given all the time we needed to reflect, to understand, to learn. It was a kind of preparation, I realized, for whatever came next. Chapter 6. The Return to Earth. When my review was over, the angels approached me once again. This time, they seemed more familiar, more connected to me. I didn't feel the same confusion or distance as before. They weren't cold. They never had been, really. They had always been filled with love and care, even if they didn't understand everything the way I did. "It's time," one of them said softly, their voice like a warm breeze. I wasn't afraid. I knew what they meant. It was time to return to Earth, to live again, to continue the journey I had started so long ago. But this time, I would return with new knowledge, new understanding. I had learned something profound here, something that would shape the rest of my life. Chapter 7. The Moon's Secret. The journey from the perfect world back toward Earth wasn't immediate. There was another stop, one I hadn't anticipated. As the celestial vessel moved through the vastness of space, the angels remained silent, their glowing forms peaceful as we approached an unexpected destination, the moon. At first it seemed like any other celestial body, cold and barren, its surface a landscape of craters and dust. But as we drew closer, the surface of the moon began to shimmer, revealing something hidden beneath its exterior. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and I saw the truth. The moon was not just a dead rock orbiting Earth. It was a station, a gateway, a place where souls went between lives. The angels guided me down to the moon's surface, and the moment we touched down, I felt a shift, as if the very ground beneath my feet was alive with energy. I followed them across the dusty plains, and soon we reached an entrance, a massive doorway that seemed to open into the heart of the moon itself. Without hesitation, the angels led me inside. The interior was nothing like I expected. Instead of cold, empty corridors, the space was warm and filled with light. Long hallways stretched as far as I could see, glowing softly with a gentle, ethereal radiance. The air was filled with a sense of peace, and I knew this was a sacred place, a place where souls came to be reborn. As we walked deeper into the moon's halls, I noticed something strange. There were rooms all along the hallway, each one filled with a soft light. I could sense life behind each door, and soon I realized what I was seeing. Mothers, each one on the verge of giving birth. In every room, a new life was about to begin, and I understood then that this was the process of reincarnation. Souls came here to choose their next life, to begin anew. Chapter 8. The Choice of Rebirth. The angels stopped in front of one of the rooms, and they motioned for me to enter. I hesitated, unsure of what I was supposed to do, but they smiled warmly, encouraging me forward. As I stepped inside, the room seemed to expand around me, and I saw her, a woman about to give birth, her face calm and serene. She was waiting for a soul to enter the child she was about to bring into the world. I could feel the pull, the gentle tug of life, calling me to enter this new body, to begin a new journey on earth. But then something incredible happened. I remembered my previous life. I remembered my parents, my family, everything I had left behind when I died. It was as if all the memories came rushing back to me in an instant, filling my mind with images of my past. The angels must have sensed my hesitation because they spoke softly into my mind, explaining that I had a choice. I could choose to be born to this new mother, to begin a completely different life, or I could choose to return to my previous family, to the parents who had loved me before. It was my decision. I looked at the woman, her face filled with love and anticipation, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity she was offering me. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't ready to leave my old life behind. I still had so much love for my parents, for the family I had known before. The thought of never seeing them again, of starting over with strangers, felt too overwhelming. And so, I made my choice. I want to go back, I whispered, my voice filled with certainty. I want to return to my parents. The angels didn't question my decision. They simply smiled, their eyes filled with understanding. I knew that whatever life I chose, it would be full of challenges and lessons, but I felt a deep peace in my heart. I had chosen the path that felt right for me. Chapter 9. The Squeeze Through Space. Once I had made my decision, the process of reincarnation began. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. The room around me seemed to blur, and I felt a strange sensation, as if I were being pulled through a tunnel. It wasn't painful, but it was disorienting. It was as though my entire being was being compressed, squeezed down into a smaller form, as if I were being funneled through a narrow space. I felt myself being drawn out of the moon, as if an invisible force was guiding me back toward Earth. It was like being sucked through a straw, only instead of air, I was moving through space itself, traveling across the vast distance between the moon and Earth in an instant. I could feel the pull of gravity, the warmth of the planet's atmosphere, and then suddenly, I was inside my mother's womb. It was a strange sensation being aware of the world from within the confines of a body that wasn't quite mine yet. I could feel the love and warmth of my mother surrounding me, and I knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter in my soul's journey. I was about to be born again, to live another life, but this time, I carried with me the knowledge of the journey I had taken between worlds. Chapter 10. A New Life Begins. The moment of birth was a blur, a rush of sensation as I entered the world once more. The light was blinding, and the sounds of earth seemed harsh compared to the soft, peaceful hum of the celestial realms. But as I took my first breath, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had made it. I was alive again, in a new body, but with the same soul. I could hear my mother's voice, soft and loving, as she held me for the first time. There was a sense of familiarity, of coming home, and I knew I had made the right choice. I had returned to the family that had loved me in my previous life, and now I would have the chance to live another life, to learn more, to grow in ways I hadn't before. As I lay there in my mother's arms, I felt a deep connection to the universe, to the angels who had guided me, to the perfect world I had visited, and to the moon that had served as the gateway between lives. I knew that this wasn't the end of my journey, but rather a new beginning, a fresh start with the wisdom of the experiences I had gained. Chapter 11. Reflections of the Soul. In the quiet moments of my new life, I often found myself thinking about the journey I had taken, the choices I had made, and the things I had learned along the way. I remembered the perfect world, the moon, and the long hallways filled with mothers waiting to bring new souls into the world. I thought about the angels, their loving presence, and the way they had helped me understand my own life in a way I never could have on earth. But most of all, I thought about the question that had haunted me from the moment I first died. Where was God? I still didn't have the answer, but I had faith that one day I would find it. The journey of the soul wasn't about having all the answers. It was about seeking them, about continuing to grow and learn, even in the face of uncertainty. I knew now that God's presence was woven into the very fabric of existence, even if I couldn't always see him directly. The angels, the stars, the perfect world, all of it was part of a grand design, a divine plan that stretched beyond my understanding. Chapter 12. Childhood Dreams and Echoes of the Past. As I grew into childhood, there was a strange familiarity to the world around me. My new life seemed different. Yet pieces of my old existence would occasionally flow to the surface of my mind. I would catch glimpses of memories that didn't belong to this life, visions of celestial journeys, of stars, of the moon's endless hallways. At night, when I closed my eyes, I often dreamed of floating, just as I had after my first death. In these dreams, I drifted above the world, watching life move below me, unable to touch it. I saw the faces of people I didn't know, but somehow recognized. I saw landscapes I had never visited in this life, but felt deep within me. These dreams would leave me with a sense of longing and wonder, a feeling that there was something more beyond the veil of my current life. I remembered the angels too. Their loving presence still lingered in the back of my mind, guiding me subtly, even though I couldn't see them. Their voices seemed to whisper through my consciousness, not as direct words, but as gentle nudges, helping me make choices, leading me toward moments of growth. Yet, even with these memories, I couldn't fully articulate what I had experienced. It was as if there was a veil over my past, allowing me to remember pieces, but never fully letting me see the whole picture. Still, those fragments were enough to shape me, to make me different from other children. Chapter 13. The Mystery of Faith. As I got older, my curiosity about God and the divine only deepened. I knew the teachings from my church, from my parents, about God's love and presence in the world. But I couldn't shake the memory of the angels on the other side, the ones who didn't seem to know God. It puzzled me endlessly. How could they, who were so clearly part of something greater, not know him? I often found myself lost in thought, trying to reconcile the conflicting realities. At times I would pray fervently, asking for clarity, for some sign that would help me understand. I would sit alone in the quiet of my room, or outside beneath the stars, waiting for a feeling, a voice, something to confirm that God was there, watching over me. The answers didn't come easily. It was as if the divine was allowing me to wrestle with the question, to grow through the struggle. And in that struggle, I learned something profound. Faith isn't always about certainty. It's about believing even when the answers aren't clear. It's about trusting that there's a plan, even when you don't fully understand it. Chapter 14. A Glimpse of the Divine. One evening when I was around 8 years old, something extraordinary happened. I was lying in bed, drifting off to sleep, when I felt a warmth wash over me, a deep, comforting presence that filled the room. It wasn't the same as the dreams where I floated above the earth. This felt real, tangible. I opened my eyes, and for the briefest moment, I saw a light, soft, golden, and comforting hovering near the foot of my bed. It wasn't a light like the lamp or the sun, but something more ethereal, more alive. It pulsed with a gentle glow, and in that moment I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt since my journey with the angels. The light didn't speak, but its presence was enough. I knew, deep within my soul, that this was an answer. It wasn't the answer to all my questions, but it was a sign that I wasn't alone, that I was still being watched over, still being guided. I wanted to reach out, to touch the light, but before I could, it faded, leaving me in the dark again. Yet, even as the light disappeared, the peace remained. I lay back down, feeling more connected to the divine than I ever had before. It wasn't the clarity I had been seeking, but it was enough to reaffirm my faith, to keep me on the path. Chapter 15. The Growing Disconnect. As I continued through childhood, that sense of being different only grew stronger. My connection to the memories of the moon and my past lives didn't fade, but they became something I kept to myself. It wasn't that I didn't trust others, it was more that I knew they wouldn't understand. At school, I was just like any other child. I played, I laughed, I made friends. But in the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts, I knew there was more to me than what people saw on the surface. I had lived before. I had seen the stars from the other side, walked the halls of the moon, and chosen to return to my family. There were times when I would sit quietly and think about the paths not taken, and the other mothers in the moon's hallway, waiting for a soul to enter their unborn children. What would my life have been like if I had chosen differently? Would I still have remembered my previous lives? Would I still have the same faith? These questions lingered in the back of my mind, but they didn't dominate my thoughts. I knew deep down that I had made the right choice. This life was where I was meant to be, even if it wasn't always easy to understand why. Chapter 16. The Test of Faith. As I grew into my teenage years, the memories of my celestial journey remained with me, but the challenges of life on Earth became more apparent. With each year, the distractions of the world pulled me further from the quiet peace I had known in the presence of the angels. The questions that had once comforted me now filled me with doubt. Why was I here? What was the purpose of living again? Why did I remember these things when no one else seemed to? There were times when I felt completely disconnected from the people around me. They were consumed with their own lives, their own problems, unaware of the deeper truths I had seen. I envied their simplicity, their ability to live without questioning everything. But I knew I couldn't go back to that kind of ignorance. Chapter 18. The Call to Share. As I entered my late teenage years, a powerful realization took hold of me. My journey was not just for my own sake. I had been given a gift, a glimpse into the greater truth of existence, and it was time to share that truth with others. The memories of the moon, the lessons learned from my celestial guardians, and the profound sense of purpose that had followed me all my life were meant to be shared. I felt a burning desire within me, a call to help those who were trapped in the endless cycle of reincarnation, those who had lost their way. I had seen the consequences of doubt and fear, the paths that led to confusion and despair. I had tasted the sweetness of faith, and I knew there were others out there who longed for that same taste. But the challenge loomed large. How could I share my experiences? Who would listen? I didn't have the answers, but I understood that my story was not just about me. It was about hope, faith, and the promise of divine rescue. I began writing down my thoughts, pouring my heart onto the pages in a journal. I wrote about my first death, the angels who didn't know God, and my experiences on the moon. I wrote about my growing understanding of faith, how trusting God had given me the strength to face my doubts. With each word I penned, I felt lighter. The act of sharing my story began to feel like a calling, a divine responsibility. I was a messenger, and I had to trust that those who were meant to hear my words would find them. Chapter 22. The Transformation of Faith. Years passed, and my mission continued to evolve. I began to write more seriously, compiling my experiences and insights into a book. It felt daunting, but I knew that I had to do it. My goal was to reach beyond my immediate community and share my story with the world. As I wrote, I recalled the words of Jesus, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." This verse resonated deeply within me. I knew that my faith was my greatest asset, and with it, I could overcome any obstacles. Every word I typed was infused with purpose. I wanted my book to be more than just a collection of experiences. I wanted it to be a guide for those seeking meaning in their lives. I wanted to offer hope to those who felt lost and encourage them to trust in God's plan. Chapter 23. Reaching for the Stars. When my book was finally published, it felt like a dream. I held the physical copy in my hands, the pages filled with my journey and the truth I had discovered. I knew it was just the beginning. I set out to share my book at churches, community centers, and schools, speaking to anyone who would listen. The response was overwhelming. People began to reach out, sharing their own stories, expressing how my message had resonated with them. Some were inspired to deepen their faith, while others were eager to share their own experiences of doubt and discovery. Chapter 25: A Legacy of Faith. As the years passed, I watched my message spread beyond my wildest dreams. People from different backgrounds began to share my story, and soon it became a movement, an awakening of souls seeking truth and connection. The message of faith, hope, and divine purpose resonated with those who were lost, offering them a way out of their own cycles of confusion. I had become a vessel for the divine message, a bridge between the celestial and the earthly. My heart was filled with gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this point. The struggles, the doubts, and the revelations had all led me here, where I could truly make a difference. In the quiet moments of reflection, I would often close my eyes and picture the moon, the long hallways, the waiting mothers, and the celestial angels. I felt their love surrounding me, encouraging me to continue sharing the message that had saved my soul. Chapter 27: My Second Death. But as the cycles of existence go, death came for me once again, unexpectedly and without warning. This time, I was prepared. I had walked through the valley of doubt and emerged with my faith renewed, and I understood that death was not an end, but a transition. As I floated in that dreamlike state, the familiar nighttime world enveloped me. I drifted among the streets and homes, observing the bustling life around me. I could see people laughing, cars rushing by, and life carrying on as if nothing had changed. But I felt a detachment, a sense of being an observer in a dream I couldn't fully interact with. The realization washed over me. I was dead. Memories of my first death flickered in my mind, a reminder of the choices that had led me here. This time, I was not afraid. I felt a calm resolve settle in my heart, as if I had been preparing for this moment my entire life. I was ready to face whatever awaited me on the other side. Chapter 28: The Arrival of the Angels. Soon enough, the familiar glowing beings appeared. The angels surrounded me with their warm, loving energy, their faces radiant with compassion. "Who are you looking for?" they asked, their voices echoing like a soothing melody. Without hesitation, I replied, "God." Once again, confusion danced across their faces. "God," one of them repeated, their expression gentle but perplexed. "We don't know who that is." Panic did not grip me this time. I realized this was another test, a challenge to my faith. I knew if I cried out, "Jesus, save me," it was a lifeline to those lacking in faith that would lead to reincarnation. Chapter 29: The Choice. The angels smiled gently, their eyes filled with understanding. "If you stay here, your soul will die," one of them said, their tone calm yet firm. I felt the weight of their words sink into my heart. I understood the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just about physical death, but the death of my spirit. I looked around, taking in the beautiful landscape of the ethereal realm. It was not a void, but a place of peace and love. Yet the angel's words echoed in my mind, warning me of a fate worse than death. But something deep within me had changed. I had walked the path of faith and had learned to trust in God's plan. I felt a profound connection to the divine that transcended the uncertainty of the moment. I stood firm, and with newfound conviction, I declared, "No, I won't go with you. I will wait for my God. I have faith He will come for me, and if He doesn't, I would rather die than live in a universe without Him." The angels regarded me with a mixture of surprise and admiration. They did not push or persuade. They simply stood by, waiting for my choice. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. This was the true test, the culmination of my journey. Chapter 30: A Moment of Clarity. As I waited, enveloped in the serenity of the celestial realm, a profound sense of understanding dawned on me. It wasn't merely about passing a test or adhering to a set of rules. It was about my willingness to give everything, my doubts, my fears, even my soul, for the faith I had cultivated. The angels stood beside me, their presence comforting. I felt their love wrapping around me like a warm blanket, dispelling the lingering shadows of uncertainty. In that sacred moment, I realized that faith was not a transaction, it was a relationship, a bond forged through trust and love. Time seemed to lose its meaning as I stood in that place, waiting for God. I understood that my journey had led me here to reaffirm my belief in the divine, to prove that faith could endure the most challenging trials. Chapter 31. The Embrace of Faith. Suddenly, I felt a surge of energy flow through me, igniting my spirit with a radiant light. I had passed the test. The realization filled me with joy, a joy that transcended understanding. I was not alone. I was part of something greater. The angels smiled knowingly, their expressions transforming from confusion to recognition. "You have found the truth," one said gently. "You are ready to join us." With their guidance, I was not taken back to the moon, but instead brought into the light of the celestial realm. I felt the essence of divine love enveloping me, a warmth that filled every part of my being. I had become one of them, a collector of souls, a guide for those who were still lost. Chapter 32. A New Purpose. My transformation was not just a change in status, it was a new beginning, a divine commission. I was entrusted with a sacred responsibility to guide others through their own journeys, to help them find their way back to faith and understanding. Together with the angels, I traveled through the cosmos, visiting worlds both familiar and strange. I watched as souls prepared for their tests, offering them love and encouragement. My heart swelled with purpose. I was part of a divine plan, a cosmic dance that spanned the universe. I understood what Jesus had meant when he said, "Heaven is like a great net cast into the sea of life." We were all interconnected, and each soul was like a thread woven into the fabric of existence. My role was to help gather those threads, to guide them toward their own divine journeys, and lead lost souls to God. This was a story written by Chris Riley, about his visions and dreams of a past life and his journey through his second life. His story is not over, but it has been written. It is my sincere hope and wish that many of you follow the path I've laid out, and when the time comes, you have total faith that God will save you so you can go to heaven and not get reincarnated. God bless you all.